So yeah, I'm Director of Spectrum Youth and Family Services. We're in Burlington and St. Albans. We work with homeless youth suffering from substance use disorder, mental health disorders. And when you're executive director, a lot of your work is consumed with fundraising and budgeting, strategic planning, and it's really easy to lose sight of why you're doing the work you're doing and what's important. So I make myself make dinner once a month in our drop-in center, and I make breakfast once a month for the kids in our shelter. To me, it's like a spiritual practice. And that's where you get to meet the young people. And there's one young man I got to be close with. His name is Ben. He was 19. He was from Essex, and he was homeless. He'd been living on the street. And I would talk to him while I'm making dinner. And he had a good work ethic. He always wanted to work. But when he came, he was on something called SSI, Supplemental Security Income. And he said, my mother put me on this to get money, and there's nothing wrong with me. And I want to get off SSI so I can work. So we took him to the Social Security office on Pearl Street, and their reaction was, we've never had anyone try and get off SSI. Everybody's trying to get on SSI. We don't even know how to get him off SSI. So it took months to get this kid off SSI. They had to call Washington, D.C. So he worked, but it was always like, he had a job at Price Chopper or Hannaford's or a Quickie Mart, always like a minimum wage job. So he lived at Spectrum for like 2 years, got a Section 8 voucher, got his own apartment. So we would get together for lunch, I don't know, once or twice a year. So one day, it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We have family on Long Island. We're driving up on a Saturday. My son has a soccer game that night. My wife's on Facebook, and he has a very unusual last name. Well, it's like Schwarzenegger. And so my wife says, do you know a Mary Schwarzenegger? I said, no, but I know a young man who has that last name. Why? She said, well, this woman just put on Facebook, hey, I live 5 hours away from Burlington, and my son lost his wallet. Can somebody please help him? So I said, I think I have his cell phone number. So I called, and I didn't want to say, hey, your mother just put on Facebook that you lost it. I said, hey, how are you? And he says, oh, not so good. I lost my wallet. I don't know what to do. I said, well, where are you going to be tonight? He said, well, I have a job at McDonald's down on Shelburne Road. I said, listen, my son has a soccer game. Then we're going out for pizza with the families. I'll stop by probably around 10 o'clock. So I go to McDonald's. There he is. And I sat in the booth. He's flipping hamburgers, probably making minimum wage. There's some poor homeless man in one corner. There's somebody else who looks inebriated in another corner. And he came over. We chatted. I don't know what I gave him, $200 or something. But I left then, and I was like, this is our success story, you know? And this... like, he's never going to get ahead in life. Okay, he's not homeless. He's got a Section 8 apartment. But so we had lunch. We went to August 1st. He wanted to give me some of the money back. And he liked fixing cars. So I said, listen, you can make a great living, you know, fixing cars. Vermont Tech in Randolph has a whole auto program. Why don't we go and look at it? You know, I'll take you there. I know the president of the college. And he said, I don't know, I'm not sure because, you know, I don't want to lose my Section 8 voucher and the benefits. And I get it, because there's no safety net under these kids. There was always a safety net under me. If something goes wrong, right? If something goes wrong for kids like this, there's no safety net. But he called me a week later. I said, all right, I'll go and look at the college. So I took an afternoon off. We go to Randolph. I met with the president, Dan Smith. We looked at the dorms. We go to the auto center. He and the auto guy are talking about engine parts and rotors. And I know how to put the air in the tires, maybe. So they're talking a whole different language. So I said to the guy, let's cut to the chase. What's the job placement rate? He said, it's a 2-year program, 100% job placement rate. You graduate from here, you're getting a job. You're going to make, you know, $40,000, $50,000 starting salary. So we're driving back, and again, I said, you should really consider this. And he said, I know, but I'm worried. So I said, all right, I get it. So I dropped him off, and as he's getting out of the car, he turns to me and says, thanks for doing this, Mark. I'm not used to people doing nice things for me. And the first thing I thought was, man, I took an afternoon off. My parents drove up and down the East Coast, taking me to look at colleges, and then did it 4 more times for my siblings, you know? And he's not, and I'm very used to people doing nice things for me. My entire life, parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, people have been doing nice things for me my whole life, and he's not used to that. Well, you know what? There's 26 kids sleeping at Spectrum, had been homeless, and they're sleeping at Spectrum tonight. They'll be going to bed soon, okay? If I walked in there tonight and said, hey, how many of you kids are used to people doing nice things for you? Not a lot of hands would go up. But if I said, how many of you are used to witnessing domestic violence? How many of you are used to being hungry? How many of you are used to sleeping out in the cold? A lot of hands would go up. So anyway, he called me a few weeks later and said, okay, I'll apply. I said, great, let's go to VSAC. I know the president of the VSAC. I said, give me the best person that can help this kid. And I went with him. So they had him apply and how to apply for scholarships. He got into VSAC. I called Dan Smith, the president. I said, he now needs a dorm room. He needs a job on campus. Great, got him that. He needed an internship. I know the folks who run Girlington Garage, they gave him an internship. So first year went great. Straight A's, Dean's List. At the end of the year, they asked him to be an RA, a resident assistant, so he'd get free. It went great. That summer, he had nowhere to stay. He lived with me and my wife for a couple of weeks. Second year, the wheels just started to come off. First, he gets in a fist fight with one of the kids in his dorm, so he loses his RA position. And then his grades started to suffer, and downhill he went, and he dropped out. I remember thinking, this is terrible, all this effort, all this work, look. But people can surprise you, right? People can surprise you. He managed on his own to re-enroll, and he got back in, and it's a 2-year program, and he got enough credits to graduate. So I took him for breakfast about a week before graduation. And again, he always says this stuff as he's getting out of the car. And he gets out, and he looks at me, he goes, I am the first male in my family not to be serving a long-term prison sentence. My grandfather killed a man and went to prison. My father stole cars for a living and went to prison. I have one brother who's serving a long-term prison sentence, and I'm graduating from college next week. So at the graduation, it was me, it was another Spectrum staff member, and it was a priest he knew. We were the family for him, for graduation. So after graduation, I said, this is great. You should get your job now, get your auto job. And he says, I'll do that, but I'm going to continue on. I want to get my bachelor's degree in business. And sure enough, he not only got his bachelor's degree in business, he was named commencement speaker for the graduation. So I'm still in communication with him, and I get we exchange Christmas cards, and this is the last one I got. Dear Mark, this year has been full of surprises, and things are going well. Having 2 college degrees under my belt is starting to pay off. I cannot begin to thank you enough, Mark, for your interventions all those years ago, as it seems like a lifetime ago, like it happened to someone else almost. As we transition into 2024, I hope you and your family enjoy the peace and tranquility that I myself have found this year. So there's a passage in the Jewish scriptures in the Talmud that says, the person who saves one life, it is as if he or she has saved the entire universe. And I don't know if I saved this young man's life, but I like to think I improved it. And by improving his life, I feel like I've improved the universe. Thank you.